Kai Hirayama. I play the clarinet among other things, but clarinet is my main language, I suppose. So I'm from Seattle originally, born and raised. And then also like my mother's whole family's from around Boston. My dad's whole family's from around, well, grandparents live in Hawaii. All of his brothers and sisters are spread out all around the country. But anyway, so I spent kind of time over in those parts of the country as well growing up. Music, well, let's see. First of all, what am I doing now? I'm at Stony Brook University, Long Island, New York, doing my doctoral studies in clarinet performance. I'm advanced to doctoral candidacy, so I'm in kind of the, yeah. I was supposed to be officially Dr. Kai this last year, but that didn't happen with everything going on now. It's hard to do a recital that you need for your degree when you can't get in the recital hall. So things are being pushed back, but that's all right. So now I'm just kind of hanging out on Long Island in the meantime and working, teaching, playing, doing this. Music, how did music get into my life? Well, so my mother is a flute player. My parents both went to, no, my dad's not a musician at all. He played trumpet in high school, and that was it. But so my parents both went to Oberlin though, and that's where they met as non-music majors, of course, but and my mom still pursued music there and stuff. So I mean, music has been part of her life since she was very young as well, and so that kind of carried through to me. Growing up, just having music around, music always playing. Mm-hmm. My mom didn't play her flute so much when I was a kid. But then when I started getting into music, that kind of helped her rediscover her flute playing also. And so it kind of snowballed from there. Now my little brother's also a musician, so tried to warn him off, but wouldn't take my advice. Yeah, so I picked up the clarinet. I still have very vivid memories of going out and, well, so the funny story behind this is since my mom was a flute player, that's what I wanted to play when we were supposed to start instruments in fourth grade. And so I was determined I was going to be a flute player also. So I had all of my friends convinced, Julian, Evan, who else? All my friends, I had them all convinced that we were all going to play flute together once we picked instruments in fourth grade, all of us guys. And then last minute, I saw the clarinet and I was like, oh wait, actually I like that more. And so I picked that instead. And then all of my friends were in the flute section. And then there I was, the only boy in the whole clarinet section of all the girls. So all my friends were mad at me about that. But
what kind of friend are you?
I know. But it worked out in the end. So
that is, yeah, let's all do this. And then you do not do that.
Yeah.
Even amidst all of the setbacks of not being able to do your final recital and sort of performances and live venues being on hold, is there something that still is at the center of what makes you want to be a musician, that sort of drives your music making?
I mean, things like the composer conference, anything. I think so much of the beauty in music comes from the collaborative elements of it, and the way that we can communicate with people through what we do with music. Which, granted, these days is a little harder, right? Because so much of music is all about that, being in the room with other people and making something. But so it's been interesting now to find new ways to do that, and I think this has been a really great way to have some kind of musical fulfillment in the days of digital, Zooming everything. I still have memories of being an undergrad and being in my 20th century music history class and being like, what is this? And of course that was like Schoenberg or something, like not really new music anymore.
The oldest music that exists.
Yeah, old. Yeah, exactly. And I still don't know. This is so strange. Why would anyone listen to this or play it? But then I don't know. I found myself being asked to play more of it, and oh, sorry, my cat's meowing at me. He loves all the new music, all the squeaks and so yeah, and I guess I kind of found myself learning to love it through the performance of it. And then also through, just getting to know people who were composing it, and other people within it, just kind of is something that I've come to. And especially as I think I mentioned to you before that I also used to do a lot of guitar playing and singing and going around to farmers markets and busking, with my instruments and stuff. And, another thing that has always drawn me into new music is the way you get kind of intergenre mingling of stuff that you don't so much in the traditional musical sense. And so, yeah, there's so much. It's so restricting, I think, to limit yourself purely to the classical tradition. I think because there's we're musicians, we're trying to just make music. Why should we restrict ourselves to one particular medium of that if we have all these great ways of creating something cool, right?
Is there anything in particular that's sort of non-musical that's really important to you in your life that you do or have an interest in?
Yeah, cooking. I back when I was in high school, I worked in restaurants a lot in high school. My first job was working at a family friend. And so my father's a doctor. He's a family doctor. And so there was one of the nicer Italian restaurants in Seattle. The owners of it, who were married, he delivered all three of their kids. And so it happened that, I don't know, for whatever reason, I got it into my head that I wanted to learn how to cook and work in a restaurant. And so he kind of got me the in to go. I worked at the restaurant for a month for no pay, just do whatever menial task they asked me to do. And eventually when they thought I was pulling my weight, they would pay me a little bit. Yeah, and so I love cooking. I learned so much working in restaurants. I was all set actually to go to culinary school. I did a bunch of summer cooking camps. I got accepted at a few culinary schools. And then last minute, I kind of changed my mind. I was like, wait, actually I'll do music.
It's like the flute story.
What's that?
It's like the flute story.
Exactly, yeah. I don't know. I guess I'm indecisive, which now that I think about it, yeah, I very much am indecisive.
You know exactly what you want to do. You just wait to the last minute to decide to do it.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. My thought on it was that cooking is something that's a little easier to do through the rest of your life just on the side because you have to do it to live, right? So, whereas music, I don't know, it's a little, if I were to go into, looking back on it, if I had gone into the culinary profession and done cooking full time, my shift was usually noon to 3 a.m. And there's not a lot of time in there to fit in anything outside of that. And music is where my passions really lay, I suppose. So, but yeah, so I like cooking. But I've always found, for whatever reason, that some of the best musicians that I've known are also some of the best cooks that I've known as well. There's some kind of, I don't know, creative brain connection in there between cooking and music. Because cooking, when you get down to it, it's very much a creative thing. You learn how all these ingredients work together and how they create different flavor profiles and stuff. And so there's very much a lot of connection there, I think.
Sure. Cooking really deals with proportion. It deals with you might think of it as just sort of planning out the time to make the meal, but there's something about the timing and the pacing and the very act of thinking it through.
Yeah, definitely.
In the long term, and also thinking and being in the moment of actually making the food. Those two things are operating at the same time.
Yeah.
the same way that making music.
Yeah, and like my favorite way of cooking I rarely ever use cookbooks or recipes or anything, because my favorite part of it is kind of just the creation of something, and I feel like following 2 tablespoons of this, 3 cups of that kind of takes away from the energy of that process, I guess. Which I guess also can tie into ideas of new music and stuff, and kind of improvisatory stuff, and the energy that you get from that, as opposed to completely written out music and stuff like that as well. And just kind of adding to the music, or creating rather than repeating. I don't know.
Rather than measuring and planning.
Yeah.
Well, great. This has been a super conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to do it.
Of course.